be 36. Of course, that's crazy. We've trained people to be answer getters rather than sense makers. Because sense makers would look at a problem and say, sheep plus goats equals age? That makes no sense. We want our students to look at that problem and say, you can't solve that problem. That's real application. And that represents a depth of understanding and sense-making. Math should make sense. And its application should make sense. But all over the world, people have responded to that problem because we've trained students to get answers rather than to understand and make sense. The thing about math is it's beautiful and it's coherent. There was a study recently where they tested non-mathematicians and they had them look at mathematical proofs and listen to beautiful classical music, and people responded in the same way of seeing some underlying beauty, even if they couldn't appreciate where the music came from or what the mathematical proof meant. There was something about it that made it beautiful. Math is beautiful. And it is coherent in a way that most of the rest of the subjects that we teach students aren't. And it's amazing that math is one of the places where students are willing to just do things that don't make sense. For instance, in mathematics, nunca is one of I love that word. It's a word that I've learned, one of the few Spanish words I've learned. I just like nunca, I like the sound of that. And in math, there's no sometimes. In Espanol, it's a lot worse in English, but in Espanol, sometimes nouns that end in O, most of the time they're masculine, and most of the time nouns that end in A are feminine, except sometimes, right? And it's like, oh, I was actually having dinner recently with some friends, and their son is a classics Latin, getting a master's at Oxford, and he explained why that is. It doesn't matter why it is. Here are these exceptions. In math, siempre, always A plus B equals B plus A. It's never not true. If it's not true, it's not math. These are rules. A times B equals B times A. That will always be the case. The distributive property is always true. X times Y plus X times Z always equals X times Y plus Z. These are true. And when we talk about making arguments in math and building proofs in math, it's because you are taking things that are forever. They're always true. Math should make sense. And yet, we find students who are willing to say, oh, it works this way for whole numbers and another way for fractions. And part of that is because we teach what I like to call temporary mathematical truths. Things that are true sometimes. And part of it is just the way we say them. For instance, when we say multiplication always makes bigger. Teaching elementary students, dealing with whole numbers. For whole numbers, multiplication always does make bigger. 7 times 5, C. 7 times 1/5, no, it does not make bigger. We have to be careful that we don't teach a truth that isn't always true. Now, we can say for n equals an integer, this might be true, but for second graders, third graders, so let's be careful with our language. Even when we do something like fraction is a part of a whole. Well, yes, a fraction is a part of a whole, but when we show that whole as a pizza, which there's great research about how over-reliant we are in teaching fractions with pizzas or cakes, right? Then what we reinforce is that it's always part of one. And a whole isn't always one. Like if we say a fraction of this group, 1/3 of this group, the group is one, but you're not one, you're a bunch. So we have, again, what mental models are we creating? What rules are we instilling in our students? Part of what happens, part of the problem with lack of sense-making comes from our teaching. We're working to make things easier. And by making them easier at one point, we may be making it harder later on. We have to be careful with our language. So, but what I really want to talk about is what does it mean? What kind of student are we trying to create? If we want tenacious mathematical learners, how would you say tenacious? I wish I could be listening, hearing how are you translating tenacious? Say that one more time. Tenacious, so it sounds like tenacity. I want tenacious mathematical learners. Who wouldn't want that? Who wouldn't want your students to be like, these are deep, strong mathematical learners? What does that look like? So I want to do a little exercise here for you to turn to the people at your table or the people behind. And I'd like you to take just a few minutes to come up with what are 3 characteristics of tenacious, deep mathematical learners. And you can start, a tenacious mathematical learner, fill in the blank. What does a good mathematical learner do? What are 3 characteristics? That's your job right now. So, turn and talk. not done yet? It's okay. This is not a task that you have to finish. But I do want to capture some of what you're saying. And this is going to be a great challenge for the translator. Right now, he's translating what I'm saying into Spanish. In a moment, he's going to be translating what you say into English for me. And then you go back and forth. Are you ready for this? Guys, okay. Here we go. So, is anyone want to volunteer? Oh, look at that. Are you volunteering or? So what's what character is it?
La característica de un aprendizaje en matemáticas es que debe ser significativo, consistente. Significativo puesto que ese conocimiento que se adquiere es capaz de ponerse en práctica en cualquier situación de la vida cotidiana o en el ámbito científico o tecnológico.
Oh, you're translating me. Yeah, this is harder for me than it is for you. Although, did you hear him translating into English? This is fun. This is so hard. I've never done this before in 2 languages. So, tenacious mathematical learners see the relevance. They're able to take the math and see how it relates into the world, into their lives. Beautiful. Okay, let's get more.
Curious, analytical, motivated. Yes.
So curious. So I'm going to push a little bit on that. How do you know a curious learner? A curious mathematical learner. What does a curious mathematical learner do?
Because they're always asking questions. And I think you can't be curious without being analytical and vice versa, so they're both connected. For example, that example that you gave with that problem, I think that a curious and analytical mathematical learner would ask, what? This does not make sense. I mean, there's information missing. I can't reach the correct answer with the data I have. Right?
That's great. So this curious, a tenacious learner, I'll say it in other words and see if you still agree with me. I don't want to put, you have the phrase, put words in your mouth? In Espanol? Whatever. Okay. So the analytical part is a tenacious mathematical learner is constantly seeing, does this make sense with what I already know? And when it doesn't, they're monitoring their own understanding. And when it doesn't, they say, wait a minute, I don't get it. Can you explain this to me? They're asking questions, trying to get it to make sense. Great. More. Okay. Oh, yes.
Buenas tardes. Nosotros, con el grupo que trabajamos acá en la mesa, encontramos 3 características que son en un estudiante pues, que tiene aprendizaje matemático profundo. Uno es capacidad de interpretación. Lo segundo es curiosidad crítica, que creo que era lo que hablaban hace un momento. Y lo tercero es la modelación o la articulación de su entorno con sus conocimientos.
So can you say more about what was translated as the coordination between, what does that look like? Oh, sorry. What does that look like when a student is connecting their learning with their environment?
Pues lo que interpretamos nosotros acá es que el estudiante, con esos conocimientos previos que tiene, hace un análisis de su entorno, ¿sí? Y a partir de ese análisis, pues despierta por un lado pues, su curiosidad crítica, que era el segundo punto que hablábamos, o sea, critica lo que ve, da su propia visión de lo que él está viendo desde su propia perspectiva, y muchas veces esa perspectiva difiere de lo que el común de pronto piensa u opina al respecto.
I love the ability of a student to challenge the norm, right? That this is what everyone else says, but I don't think so. Wow, that takes so much bravery to stand up to what is sort of what everyone else believes or thinks. What?
Pues aparte de la valentía, creo que así el estudiante no lo exprese, su mente, por su capacidad matemática y por su aprendizaje matemático profundo, hágalo o no lo haga público, su mente sí está trabajando en ello. O sea, su mente sí mantiene como su postura o su punto de vista. Y de pronto al final de la clase se lo expresan a uno, pero o a sus padres o a cualquier otra persona cercana que de pronto crea que le puede dar como viabilidad o la respuesta o sacarlo de la duda si la respuesta o la opinión que tiene es correcta o no.
Yes, a lot of what we want students to do and think we don't always hear and see. What we want it to be happening in there. What a great set of characteristics. I'm sure there are many more. But as we heard earlier, if we want to promote a behavior in students, we have to set what that standard is. We have to give them an example of what that looks like so that they can strive to achieve it. And so taking the time to define what kind of behaviors we want from students matters. So I want to provide a framework for thinking about how these come together and how we can motivate the kinds of behaviors that you're talking about. So here's my simple framework, and I'll give credit to the world of academic mindsets, researchers. I'll talk a little bit more about them in a minute. But one way to think about this is for any task that we take on, we ask our students to take on, there's a set of beliefs that get activated. One belief is, this is worth doing. We talked a lot about that this morning. How do we make math worth doing? I talked about the power of narrative and information seeking and having a little bit of uncertainty as a way to motivate. We heard about tying it to the real world, to things that matter in students' lives. And you can think about what do you do? One way we try and make it worth it for students is by threatening them with a bad grade. That may not be the most positive way to make something worth doing, but we do that. Parents might do that. We can reward them with a good grade. If you do this, you'll get a good grade. If you do this, you'll have a chance to go to college. If you do this, you'll get a good job. One of the things that was missing this morning, I think, when you want to talk about how important it is, the value of doing math, there was a study by an economist at Harvard named David Deming. I really like his work. And he studied what kinds of skills are most valued in the workplace. And the way he measured that is what skills had the did you see the highest increase in wages? What were companies paying the most for? And the top one was a combination of two skills: math knowledge, math, and social skills, the ability to work with others. If you were a little bit nerdy, but not the kind of nerdy that doesn't talk to anybody, but knows how to work with others, that was most valued. Because it's a very technological world. Nerds rule. I mean, nerds make the most money. The richest people in the world are nerds. Bill Gates, he is a nerd. Zuckerberg, he is a nerd. These guys are nerdy. But in this complex world, machines are able to do nerdy tasks that can be done by somebody by themselves. Machines can do programming, that are simple programming that an individual can do. It's complex problems that stump machines and need a group of minds to tackle. So students who have mathematical, technical skills and are able to work with others, that's the biggest drops. The worst is no technical skills and not able to work with somebody. The next to worst was technical skills without being able to work with somebody. The second highest was being able to work with somebody and no math knowledge. So it's that combination, but we need both of them in today's world. And so you want to know why you should learn math? Because mucho dinero, that's where you're going to get it. And that's what's valued in the workplace. So we have lots of different ways. One thing that drives a lot of us is just we like getting better at stuff. How many of you use well, I'll talk about it in a minute, but we like getting better. Oh, I did something I skipped this morning. I won't talk about it in a minute. I'm going to talk about that. How many of you use an app or track your steps for exercise or monitoring yourself? That all those devices are about ways to motivate you to constantly try and get a little better. It's a little bit of what, it's like a game. I use it for learning Spanish. I use Duolingo for learning Spanish, and I get little reminders. Hey, you're on a 59-day streak. Don't you want to get to 60? And it's like, well, of course I do. And it's sort of like that zone of proximal development. It's a thing that I can do that's just another little thing, but it's constantly reminding me. And I like getting it right. I like getting to the next thing. We all enjoy getting better at something, meeting the next challenge, making a little mental bet. I wonder if I can do that. Can I do a little bit more? Can I beat my number of steps that I did last time? Can I beat and it shows me tracking against my past history. How many points I got last week, and the week before, and this week. Hey, a little bit more, and I can beat my record. That's a way to motivate people. Getting better, improvement. We heard a little bit about that too. And marketers use this all the time. Every time you get one of those loyalty reward cards or on your app, 2 more Uber rides, and you'll get $5 off. It's all about keeping you in that zone. Just a little bit more, you get prize. You get another little thing. You like that. Can I get there? So I have to believe it's worth doing. There are lots of ways to do that. The more intrinsic, the better. But it's not enough to want to do something. We also have to believe we can do it. There has to be a level of self-efficacy. I would love to win the Tour de France. That is not going to happen. Like, that would be awesome to represent the country, to be the first Colombian to win the Tour de France, right? It's like, oh man, that would be so great. But there's no possible way. I don't believe I could do that. Well, one, starting training in your 60s is probably a little late. But even if I started early, maybe. But there's so many things we all would love to do, but we don't put any effort into doing them because we don't really believe they're possible. There has to be a level of self-efficacy. There has to be something that gets us to believe that maybe we can do that. For students who have a long history of failure in math, we talked about our brains being these predictive inference generators, they're making predictions. If all you've done is fail in math, what's your predictive simulation saying about what's going to happen next? You're going to fail. Right? So if that's what I believe, I may want to succeed, but I don't believe it's possible. So we have to give people evidence of their capability. We have to give students evidence that they can do it. What I was just describing about those apps that show you, hey, you've done 49 days, you've done 50 days, you can do one more, that's giving you evidence of what you've done before. Your past history, giving you evidence of success, can build that basic self-efficacy. I can do this. I've done this before. But still, we're often asking students to do things that aren't just kind of easy. You've done this before, you can do it again, but I'm asking you to do something you haven't done before. And when you're trying something hard, something new, you're not likely to get it right the first time, or maybe even the second time. And then you need another belief. You have to believe, this is what I'm just talking about. What feeds the belief that you can is that you have some skills. You give kids evidence of what they know. You give them some strategies to be successful. And that's when you start to get some of the behaviors you're talking about. But really not the kind of behavior, not the deep behaviors. This is more performance behaviors. Okay, I'll give it a try. But if I don't get it, will I try again? And that's where I need this other belief. I have to believe that I can learn what I need. And this is a learning belief. This is called growth mindset. Have people heard of growth mindset? Awesome. Wow. Everybody in the United States has heard of it. Most people don't, many people don't understand it. But we can talk about this. This is the work of Ben Darrow on self-efficacy and Carol Dweck's work on growth mindset. That this growth mindset is about the belief that your brain isn't fixed. Talked about this culturally. I'm either a math person or I'm not a math person. Math people are geniuses. I'm not a genius. I'm not a math person. If I'm not a math person, I can't do it. My brain's never going to be able to do it. Growth mindset is a recognition that your brain can grow. And when you, through effort, you change your brain and you get smarter. You make yourself smarter. You're not either smart or not. You make yourself smarter through work. Effective effort. So if I don't believe that I can learn something that I can't do easily, I'm not going to stick with it. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. And here's the other part. If it's hard, I'm going to fall down. If I'm going to fall down, I might be embarrassed, so I have to have another belief. I have to believe that people won't laugh at me. That the group that I value will support me even if I'm not getting it. And so these beliefs help feed the behavior. I'm not going to ask questions, I don't get it. I'm less likely to do that if I think people are going to laugh at me because I didn't get it right away. I don't understand. This doesn't make sense. You don't get it? We have to create a space where this can happen. So, how do we do that? When we talk about, we make a plan. There's an end goal, a learning goal, and there's a starting state. We heard about this a little bit today too. Here's what we want from our students. Here's where they start. We make a plan. We tend to make one plan for a class of students. We make one plan for a grade of students. It's called a curriculum. This is what we're going to do. And we put time limits. This is going to take this amount of time, and that's going to take that amount of time. And you know, some students, maybe that plan works, but some, it's a different path, and some, it's another path, and some, it's a crazy path, and some, wow, I can't believe you got there that way. And some, we're still waiting for them to get there. And there are lots of factors. If we expect everybody to do it this way, and we don't build in, anticipate, there are going to be variations. And everybody who varies from the path is going to wonder, I must be stupid, I didn't get it the way everybody else did. So we have to create a space that makes it okay that maybe you don't get it right away. Because learning something new is going to encounter failure. We heard about learning from mistakes earlier. And I want to share 3 truths about failure. One is, it's inevitable when you're learning something new. And I'm just going to tell you a story. This is a personal story for me. A couple of years ago, a colleague of mine who teaches at Vanderbilt University is an expert on struggling learners. He's also an avid fly fisherman. He loves fishing. And he said to me, I got a plan. We're going to go on this trip. We ride horses 30 miles over mountains into a wilderness of 1 million acres. We camp for 8 days, fish, and ride back out. It'll be great. And I'm thinking, what's my self-efficacy for this? Riding a horse. I don't know how many of you ride horses? Now, I would say I've ridden a horse. You know, sometimes when you're little and you go to a little fair and somebody walks you around in a circle like this while you're sitting on a horse? I've done that. But riding a horse 30 miles over mountains, along cliffs, okay. Not a lot of self-efficacy in that. Camping for 8 days in wilderness where there isn't a car and you can just drive to a hotel. I hadn't done that. And fishing, when I told my wife this, she said, you told them that you're jinxed when it comes to fishing. Now, jinxed is a word I've had trouble translating before, but I think it's done. I told them I was going to use that word. Right? Every time I've tried to fish, it's been a disaster. So the idea of doing 3 things that I've never really done successfully before, and one where I've only had failure, sounded terrifying. So I said, I'll do it. But part of the reason I said I'll do it is because I want to remember what it's like to be the worst at everything and not be able to escape. Because we have students who feel that way in school every day, and particularly in math class. It's like, well, let me remember what it's like. So, to get ready for this, my friend, he has a cabin, and he wanted to teach me a little bit about fishing beforehand, so I spent 3 days getting a little lessons on how to fish and the equipment, and over those 3 days, I caught that one fish. Solo. Uno. 3 days. And everyone else, these are fish that are just waiting to bite something, right? I mean, everyone else, it's just a pond, it's one. And he took a picture of me, so proud, I caught my one fish. And I'm going, oh, this is going to be so terrible, right? So, I'm going in knowing that this is going to be hard. Failure is inevitable. Of course you're going to fail when you're trying something new. If you're not, it's probably not enough of a challenge. Failure is an indication that you're learning. That's where it's happening. You're in that boundary. So one thing that's true, it is inevitable. The other thing is it is essential to learning. Failure is essential. There's the benefits of generating errors during learning. That's the name of that research paper. There's a lot of evidence. Your brain gets active. Remember I talked about your brain is constantly trying to figure out how the world works? And one of the ways it's doing that is saying, okay, that didn't happen, this didn't happen, that didn't happen, this didn't happen. And when things go normally or easy, your brain is quiet. It's when it isn't easy that your brain is active. Failure is a part of the learning process. That's when it's happening. It's like, oh man, I have something to learn. That's when your brain wakes up. One of the most heightened points for learning, the worst point for learning, done these studies, is boredom. That's the worst. You're not paying any attention. The best is confusion. A little bit of confusion is an optimal learning state. Not frustration. That's too much confusion. But a little bit of confusion is when you start to lean forward and say, wait a minute. It's kind of where you're describing about tenacious learners. You're going, wait, that's not making sense. They're monitoring, a little bit confused. That's when you're awake. So that's a beautiful state. Now, the last thing about it, my last truth, is that failure sucks. And I'm not sure translate that, but I think that worked. Because failure just feels bad. Nobody likes to fail. Mistakes are good for you, they're great learning opportunities, but we don't like it. And one of the reasons we don't like it is because we're a little bit worried about how people see us. So we have to create a space where failure is okay. So one, let's give students examples of their capacity. And I talked about this, how do we make students feel like they're capable? And one is compare them to a norm. How are you doing? So this is one of these exercise things that says I'm trying to do 600 calories, and it shows me how I'm doing. It's not comparing me to anybody else, it's just comparing me to a set of expectations. How am I doing? There's one I mentioned about comparing me to my past. How was I doing before? How am I getting better? That's a way to show you have capacity. It's about growth. Growth is good. Comparing to others? So there are optimistic ways to compare to others. One thing that Duolingo does is it shows me, here I am, and it says, hey, I'm close to a promotion zone. Now I'm actually in 19th place, but I don't know, I'm in 19th place of a group that's kind of like me. So it's not comparing me to everybody, because if I was being compared to everybody, I'd be in the basement, looking up. That's not a good place to be. So good games, good learning apps are trying to keep me in a place where I say, hey, a little bit more, I can get to the next level. There are ways to compare to others that are terrible. This is actually a list of low-performing schools. This is a shame list. Look how bad you are. And there's some belief that by showing schools or individuals how bad they are, that will motivate them. And for many, it turns into shutdown. So we have to show capacity. And we have to help people have a path to get better. You can do this, but what's the next best thing for me to work on? And it may not be the next best thing for somebody else. Where am I? How do I get better? What's the next thing for me to work on? The person, Anders Ericsson, is an expert on expertise. He wrote a book called Peak. He's the guy that when they talk about 10,000 hours to get good at something, he's the guy they talk about. It comes from his research about violin players. He says, forget the 10,000 hours. If you want to get good at something, first, believe you can, the belief. Two, get a teacher. What's the teacher for? To help you figure out what's the next thing for you to do. The work is on the learner. We heard that this morning too, earlier today. The work is on the learner. But what should I be working on to help me? And how do I know I'm getting better? Right? I have to have some way of saying, like, what the standards are. I'm getting better at this. And I'm working on casting and doing these things. And the best part is, what do I do if I'm stuck? To be able to self-monitor, good learners, you talked about this, they monitor themselves. One of the things my friend did when he taught me how to cast, he said, feel it. So that I learned that as soon as I cast, I know, I did that wrong. As soon as I did it, what have I got to do right? How do I correct myself? You have to give students a way to to monitor themselves. We heard that earlier today too. It's true for all of us. And if you find you're not getting it, what do I do? How do I get help? And there's that monitoring yourself in the moment. Oh, I did that wrong. And afterwards, what can I do? And do I go look for help online? Should I go ask somebody? We have to sometimes teach help behaviors. What do I do to help myself get better? And how do I help myself from getting discouraged? Because you know what? When you're trying something new and hard, you will get discouraged. When I was on this trip, this guy was great. He was a retired elementary school teacher. And the first day, we're out there in the wilderness, and we go fishing, and on my first day, I caught my first fish. Again, I only caught one fish on our first day, but I caught a fish with help. I was so excited. We come back to camp. People I was with had caught other fish, and there was a nice group of people that I was with, and there was one other person on the trip. And I ran into that other person on the trip, and I said, Bill, how did you do? And he said, I caught so many fish. He was the kind that no matter what you've done, he'd done more and better. And he'd say, oh, I caught so many, and I started back, I couldn't stop. And he said, how did you do? I said, Bill, I caught my first fish. And he said, well, surely you caught more than that. And I had words in my head that I shouldn't say, because I'm not sure we'd be able to translate them, but they were not pleasant for Bill. Like, what? Anyway, he was up. Because when you're just learning, you are fragile. You don't feel confident. And he just totally cut me out from underneath. So I went to him. I went to Bob, this retired elementary school teacher. I said, Bob, what did you do when you had students who couldn't get it? Everyone else around him is getting it, but you're not. But that student isn't. What did you do? And he knew that I was talking about myself. And he said, well, sometimes I try another way, but often I just remind him that sometimes it takes time. It was great. He set a norm that it takes time. Sometimes it does take time. And this is the work of Carol Dweck. She's everywhere. Carol Dweck is research on growth mindset, the belief, the learning belief, the learning mindset. Our brains are not fixed. We can grow our brains with effort. And if we don't believe that, and part of what they found, they just did this huge study in the United States where it was just a short mindset intervention, and for low-achieving kids in particular, it really moved the needle. It made a difference in them. This was just about your brain changes when you learn. Your brain is not fixed; it physically changes, and that's part of what a learning mindset is, a growth mindset, and reminding people that who they are is not necessarily who they will be. Is an important message. So how do you create a culture for this, for all this to happen? So I'm just going to give you an example from Google. Google had a big project they called it Project Aristotle, and they wanted to figure out what are the most productive teams. Google's a very competitive place, and they wanted to get the most out of their workers. What are the best teams? They thought, okay, the best teams are the ones that you can do one thing, and you can do another thing, and you can do this thing and that thing. They thought maybe that was it. They looked, no, that's not it. Oh, the best teams all go bowling or something together. No, that wasn't it either. And so when they looked at research. They ended up looking at research from a woman named Amy Edmondson. And when I'm reading about this, I realized, Amy Edmondson, I know Amy Edmondson. She's kind of a friend, one of those loose friends. She teaches at Harvard Business School. And I knew that she taught at Harvard Business School, but I didn't know that she did anything that interested me. But her work was all about something called psychological safety. The most effective teams were the ones where members felt safe to take risks and be vulnerable in front of each other. That's the space we want. When you feel it's okay to say, I screwed up, that's when you're effective. When you hide your mistakes, no. So creating that place, that's what it is. And so I just want to give you a little video to show you what the power of creating a place where you need to make it normal to behave a certain way. When you have norms, people follow. Now this is in English, but you can get a translation, but the visual speaks all for itself. This is from an old show called Candid Camera in the United States, where they do sort of pranks on people, and you'll see.
The gentleman in the elevator now is a candid star. These folks who are entering, the man with the white shirt, the lady with the trench coat, and subsequently one other member of our staff, will face the rear. And you'll see how this man in the trench coat tries to maintain his individuality. But little by little, he looks at his watch, but he's really making an excuse for turning just a little bit more to the wall. Now we'll try it once again. Here's the candid subject. Here comes the candid camera staff, 3 of them at least. And this man has apparently been in groups in the elevator. First he makes a full turn to the rear, and Charlie closes the door. A moment later, they open the door, everybody's changed positions. Pressure for some good. Now, in a moment, on Charlie's signal, everybody turns forward. There, notice they take off their hats. And now, do you think we could reverse the procedure? Watch.
It's hysterical. But this is the power of setting a standard. These guys set my mark. This was my team when I went fishing. They were there to support me. At the end of 8 days, I could catch fish. It took me all the time to get there. It did take me a long time. But by the end, I was doing it. And you know what? It's just like we heard from the speaker before lunch. These guys were probably happier for me than I was for myself. Doc, that's my nickname. Doc, that was awesome. You're not happy enough. Oh my gosh, that was amazing. Look what you did. Isn't that the world you want in your classroom? Everybody cheering for everybody else. Look what you were able to do. And you have to create a space where it's safe to do that and normal to do that. The most effective teachers turn to their colleagues for advice, while weaker teachers don't bother. It's those who sit, I'm not getting it, and they close their door. If you have it in your culture with your colleagues, it's a lot more natural to bring it into your classroom with your students. Seeking help is critical. And I just want to end, I'd like to wrap up with this construct, this thing called intellectual humility. I just love that. And this is about recognizing that we all have something to learn. You believe there's something new to learn. Our brains are malleable. Our brains are changing. When we learn, our brains physically change. It's not just little kids. Even my wrinkly old brain, when I learn something new, it physically changes. We are not fixed. Even at my age, our brains can continue to grow. And no matter how good you are, you can always get better. It's the thing that separates the elite. They don't stop. One of the reasons tennis players change coaches and artists find new teachers is because their current teacher runs out of ways to help them. How can I get a little bit better? I'm always trying to get better, no matter how good you are. That's part of it. And we want to give recognition for growth. And I mean recognition. This title of this study, Young Children Are More Generous When Others Are Aware of Their Actions. We value status. We are social creatures. We want other people to like us and to respect us. When we, as teachers, say, wow, that was great growth. Not you're smarter than everybody, that was great growth. We're sending a message. We want to give status, social status, for doing the kinds of behaviors that we value. Use language, growth mindset kinds of language. So, you're a genius? No. Because if that person's a genius because they got it fast, that must mean I'm kind of dumb. When you use language like, hey, class, let's start with an easy one, and there's one student or 3 students who can't do that easy one, they're never going to do the hard one, right? If you set it up, hey, this may take a few tries, and if you don't get it right away, the expectation was you weren't going to. So, give praise like you're giving advice. Hey, you really rehearsed that step. Rehearsing, practicing is a really good thing to do. I like the way you responded to that suggestion. Having an open mind, listening to others, that's a really good thing to do. Use, like I said, smart is not advice that anybody else can use. What kind of environment, culture do you want in your classroom? A learning culture, a performance culture. A learning culture is all about everybody getting better. A performance culture is about competition. Learning is not a race. We want everybody to win. There are times when it is about performance, but it's not all about performance. Mostly it should be about learning. Last quote from a neuroscientist from Ireland. I just like this. This is the business wherein brains are not built, they're grown. And growing things is a messy, unpredictable business. We're in the business of growing brains. It's tough what we try and do. We can create the culture for our kids to succeed. What are the norms and culture you want to have in your classroom? Gracias, and have a great day.
Muchas gracias, doctor. Gracias.